Shout out to all the positive vibrators tuned in around the world, all the usual suspects. Y'all know who you are. In this episode, we have our good friend Wayne, aka WayneHead, former pro baseball player turned business owner. He makes some fresh gear at mysticfern.com. Check him out. Enjoy.
The burnt egg roll?
Yeah. All right. What's up, Wayne? It's been a while.
How are you?
Great.
Yeah, man. I'm doing well also, yeah. It's awesome to catch up, and I mean, I don't know when the last time I saw you was, but it's definitely been a while. I don't know. Can you remember? I can't. It's hard to say, right?
I don't know how much of the podcast I did with Alex that you saw, but there was a point where
I listened to the whole thing.
Oh,
yeah, I listened to that whole thing. Yeah.
So you seen the part where I was like, there was that time I remember in my mind. It's kind of crazy how there's certain things that we remember in our mind from our past. And the story of me being in Adam's and Alex's driveway, and then you coming out there with, it was either Alex or Skip or one of your guys' friends, and we played 2-on-2, and you guys balled me and Adam pretty good. And I was like, damn, I got to step my game up, man. I was mad competitive when it came to basketball at that age, so that kind of forced me to step my game up.
Yeah. No mercy. No mercy, right?
Yeah, it makes you better. I guess following off that, like, you played 4 years at Collinsville basketball, right?
No, I played actually 2. So I played freshman, sophomore year. Yeah, that's kind of crazy because I think back on that. I was in such good shape going into playing baseball that, yeah, I wish I would have. That was one of the things I wish I would have kept playing at the time for the shape aspect of it, because you get in such good shape playing basketball. Rolling into baseball season, it's like you are in premium condition, you know, and it's you know, baseball's not as much running and whatnot, so you're really ready to go. But anyway, yeah, I played 2 years, freshman, sophomore year.
You were pretty good. You were like one of the better players, if I could remember. Did you play up like freshman, sophomore year, like on JV or varsity?
Yeah, so not for basketball, but you're right. Like I remember my sophomore year, I was like 6 man. I wouldn't start, but I'd be first off the bench, and I could shoot. I still can shoot. So I could come in and like really light it up. Like I think I shot for a high percentage, which I didn't keep track of that type of stuff. But yeah, I never played up. I was kind of more of a shooting guard. I could have been a better ball handler at the time. Looking back, like if you can handle the ball, you can play anywhere, you know, in a lot of instances, right? Like being able to handle the ball is a very important skill, just like shooting. So if I would have been a better dribbler, ball handler, I probably would have.
Lag spike. So, all right, sorry to cut you off. Yeah, there was a lag spike there.
Yeah, I gotcha. Okay. Yeah, it just happened for a sec.
I was gonna ask you, you played for Coach Sika then down right?
Yeah, I did. Yeah,
I played for him too. Like he was.
Did you?
Yeah,
okay.
He was to me the most like down to earth like coach that we had at that time.
It's funny looking back at coaches, because coaching, that's just an interesting thing. Your coaches can really stand out because they're in a lot of mentors in some cases, or and you've had good and bad coaches, but I would say he was a good coach. Yeah, how did you describe him? Like down to earth? Yeah, he didn't really have an ego.
Yeah,
he was coached and coached to win and everything. And so I remember with our team was really good, but like we'd have issues like finish game close, and then like our win-loss rate didn't necessarily reflect our talent. So that was frustrating, I think, going back to sophomore year talking about basketball. That's funny, man.
Because
it's the connection though. No, it's the connection, because
I thought you played for Coach Bone too.
Played for Jim freshman year. So Jim Bone was the freshman coach. I don't know if I don't think he was next year, but no, I didn't play for Bob. I did though. Interesting you say that. I did actually though play with Bob and BJ, like my first baseball team rec league. So Bob was my little league baseball coach, and we didn't lose a game for our first like 5-6 seasons. I'm not joking. We went undefeated. We had a really good team with good players, and I could rattle them off. It was just kind of funny that Bob was my little league baseball coach, and then I ended up playing baseball, in college, and then after professionally for a bit. It's just funny, man. Like,
yeah.
So I got to know him as a coach. It's not the same as men's basketball, right? But
I could imagine in my mind, because I played for him like JV and varsity, like my junior and senior year, and
yeah, tell me about it.
He was definitely an intense coach, and I don't know if he played that same role, if you could remember, like when he was coaching you, like at that younger age in Little League baseball.
Yeah, it would have been without all the yelling and screaming, but the same intensity, the same. I mean, he had fun. Don't get me wrong. He wasn't like over the top at all. But he had a way. I would say, and I want to hear about your basketball stuff too, because I didn't realize you played, into varsity and all that. That's cool. He's a competitor. I know he played against Larry Bird, I was going to say, in college, and scored like, I don't know, I think it was like 30. That's playing funny. Sports, there's a certain level that you play at, like this level of excellence, and I think he thrived to have that feeling all the time, which I think winners do.
Yeah, right? That's funny. That's funny that you mentioned that about him playing against Larry Bird, because I didn't know that until after I graduated high school, like years later after high school, and I read that in an article, and I think he had something like 37, and Larry Bird had something like 40.
Yeah, I didn't mean to. I was just saying I didn't want to sell him short. Yeah, if it was 37, whatever it was, but they were probably the two top scorers at that time. So for him to reflect on the level that he played at against that type of player, that's extraordinary, and at the same time, it doesn't define your whole career, but you can just put it all together that it did, right? He played like a champ. Yeah, I would guess.
I'll tell you a few stories from high school basketball. Like, he didn't practice with us that much. When he did, he always killed. Even our best players at that time. He had no fear in his heart. There was a time he played knockout with us, and this dude didn't miss, man.
Yeah. That's confidence, right? He's confident. I could imagine too. He's not going to go out there and play unless he's feeling ready to play. He doesn't want to get got, right? Like, he's going to bring it. He's going to be the one bringing it. I remember with us, and would bring it with intensity as well. Probably ran in the family. For me, if I play men's softball, I'm not super intense about it, but I'm trying my best, whatever that looks like. And if I'm playing pickup basketball, it's the same deal. I think folks like that, they carry that intensity with everything they do, and which I carry through life, right? I think it defines a lot of who I am, having played sports all the way growing up, and I'm sure you too, right? It's kind of the ethos of who you are, but for me now, I really incorporate that in some way, shape, or form. What position were you in basketball? Point guard or shooting guard? Or
it was a tougher transition for me going into high school basketball, because at Holy Cross, hold on one second, because there's a lot of a frequent amount of lag spikes right now.
I can hear you great.
Okay.
Hope you can hear me, bud.
Yeah. So far, it seems to be better right now. Yeah, but I was gonna say, going back to basketball, from at Holy Cross, I was always taller than all the other players on the team, so they would stick me at forward and center. And so with that, you never truly develop point guard instincts. Yeah. Or even shooting guard instincts. And then I didn't grow going into high school, so it was a harder transition for me to keep playing. Well, I had to learn how to play a small forward role going into high school, and then you're already behind because they already have small forwards and guards that have been playing at other schools like North Junior High and stuff. So coming in and then learn the system too as well is. Did you go to North Junior High?
I did, yeah. So you do, you run the flex.
Yeah.
So same place, post up.
Right. So it was easier for those kids to transition into high school because my teammates that played for Coach Rustio, they ran all the same shit at North. And so for me playing at Holy Cross, we have more of a basic offense. It wasn't that hard, moving without the basketball. Our coach at Holy Cross didn't make us do that. So for me, I was more at Holy Cross freestyle. My coach let me do whatever I want pretty much, But then going into Collinsville High School, they were like, all right, you got to run this flex offense and post up. And I'm like, shit, man. My mind couldn't process how to move without the ball and say, okay, if the ball's on this side, then you have to, set an off ball screen over here or move here, So that was a tougher transition for me to get.
Yeah, I totally understand. And what about having to do a tryout and the tension and anxiety and stress of doing a tryout and then seeing if you make it or not? So we did that first in 7th grade going into North. And, came from a grade school, public grade school, and then went to Jefferson. We were undefeated at Jefferson as well in basketball, 5th and 6th grade. Yeah, we had a good team, but
who were some of your teammates at that time?
Oh man. So we've got Chris Schaefer, Dustin Cloyd, who you may or may not know him.
I know Chris Schaefer. He was a nice dude. I like Chris. He was one of the older dudes that was always nice to me, But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Chris is a great guy. Chris went to Kaskaskia, which is where I went to junior college as well. Just a quick note. So we were there together actually at the same time, kind of randomly, because he got a basketball scholarship there. So that's pretty cool. But so yeah, Chris was a lefty too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So then let's see who else. We got Tom Partle. Tom Partle is a really good bowler now. He bowled at the time too, but he's a bowler. And then Lamar Burns. I mean, I could go on and on because everybody even contributed. Skip was on the team. Skip played through high school, or at least I think through sophomore year at least. And who else? I don't mean to leave anybody out, but I can't even. Yeah, I know there was a kid named Nick Hamilton, who he didn't play in, beyond grade school to my knowledge. But yeah, man, we just had we had a really good coach too. His name was Mr. Dietering. Sorry, Mr. D is what we called him all the time. You never said his last name. You only knew his last name because it was in the yearbook or something, right? But we had good coaching. So we didn't run really. We kind of ran some plays, but to your point though, still like, yeah, going from that type of ball where you're just kind of dumping it in, people are moving around. There's really not plays going around in grade school. I could see that at your level, going to Holy Cross as well, and so going to North, man, it was like you go to this big school, and obviously all the schools are coming together. So every school in the school district, they roll up to that 7th, 8th grade. And then that's kind of intense, right? You're like riding the bus now. But I had a group of friends with Skip and our friend George, and who lived by Alex on the same street. So we'd all go to the bus stop together. So you've got your little nucleus going into it, right? But yeah, the tryouts though, man, you would do tryouts and then they'd be listed on the door, after they're all over. They'd post the team out there in the morning. You'd find out. You'd like run up and like look at it, man. It's not really a fun thing to do, right? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, high school, I think, yeah, I remember experiencing something like that, like freshman year.
I was going to ask, like, so you played sophomore year then too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so how, I guess, did you start? I'm guessing you did. Not that it matters, but whatever. Did you play? I'm just kind of curious, like, how it was.
It was kind of points where, there was a stretch where I did start for, X amount of games in a row, and then it's all performance based and stuff. So, but definitely sophomore year, that was probably the year that I got the most playing time. Coach Rustio was actually my JV coach, and he put me in some games and I played well. But sophomore year, I would say, was definitely the year that I got the most playing time. My freshman year, I had Coach Muniz. I don't know if you remember him, Joe Muniz.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember Joe.
He was a pretty good basketball player as well as baseball player. He does hold some type of assist record at Collinsville High School. I think the Chinooks tournament, but I think the
Chinooks tournament was a big deal. That was fun. I remember watching him play there. I was well younger at the time, and then it was fun to watch. A lot of good basketball players went through there. So
yeah, I think he had
on opposing teams too. Go ahead.
I think he had Corey Garcia on his team. So I think when you have someone like that is just that much bigger than everybody in high school, you can rack up them assists.
Yeah, they had some great teams, man. That was fun to watch.
I was going to say, I never saw Richard Keene play, though.
Yeah, I saw him play at least one game. I remember going down there with my parents to watch a game, and I think they played Granite City. He had a fast break dunk and some other plays, but I remember that pretty vividly. I was going to say, Joe, they won Belleville. Isn't he the head coach of Belleville West, and they won a state championship a couple years ago? Mm-hmm. That's pretty cool, man. So good for them. Good for him. I was hoping Collinsville would get to finish their season last year because they were killing it. And I was thinking that's tough that they didn't get to finish the game. And I even heard they simulated it in Collinsville. They simulated that they would have won. I had heard that. Whatever. It was through a friend or something like that. Just to kind of compare the teams. But that's cool that I'm happy that they had a great year last year.
Yeah, I keep up with my friend Brandon Snyder. I'm sure you know him, right?
I know Brandon. Yeah.
Yeah, I keep up with him. That's one of my good friends, man. We have a lot of memories together back in the day, and I always ask him about how Collinsville basketball is doing, and he was telling me that they had this kid. I forgot his name, but he supposedly had passed a lot of people's records, like Terry Tessery's records in scoring, and some other people, maybe Richard Keene. He's pretty up there, on the scoring list. I don't know if you're familiar with who I'm talking about.
No, I don't know actually. I haven't been around for a couple of years, so I'm a little out of touch.
Yeah, but this kid, he supposedly is one of the better players in recent years in Collinsville history, and I think he's going to SIUE because I think as good as his numbers are, I think he was kind of like an undersized guard. like
Mm.
go compared to like the bigger Division I schools.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of interesting how you can ball and you can be a baller and you could go anywhere, and there's so many different paths on how you go somewhere or don't go somewhere. And recruiting's an interesting thing too. Just because I played, playing baseball, I had scholarships, but I wasn't highly recruited. But I got full scholarships for my 4 years, and a little bit more, because I had to finish up with the fifth year. But
Yeah, that's what I was gonna ask you, because I think that was your major sport, right? Is baseball?
yeah, that's what I ended up gravitating to. Yeah, I loved basketball and everything, but like I said, I don't know, man. Baseball's got its own vibe. It's a different vibe than basketball and all the other sports, for that matter. And yeah, I just always loved playing. I was a catcher too, which it's an interesting position, and that's really what I was all through. I played some other positions along the way, but I finished my last game playing pro ball as a catcher, and I loved it. But
How old were you when you first started playing baseball?
yeah, I was, I didn't play t-ball. I played the first year that they did coach pitch.
Mm.
So I'm guessing, like around, I don't know when it starts. It's changed over the years. I feel like they start a lot younger now, but maybe they don't. But yeah, I would say kindergarten. The first year, maybe 5, 6 years old. I think that's a good guess.
Okay. And then did you play up in high school, like your freshman sophomore year?
Yeah, so freshman year, no. And we had some really good teams, by the way, that those times. So yeah, freshman year, no. Sophomore year, yes. I started out, and that's where, again, sophomore basketball going into baseball, I was like in great shape. Could steal bases, and I stole some bases at that time. I didn't as the years progressed, again, but I wasn't doing the same type of workouts. And the lack of knowledge back then compared to now is so there's a huge gap. It's an ocean wide gap of information now back compared to then. So that's a good thing. I'm happy for that in its own. But yeah, I played up sophomore year. I started out sophomore and I was just killing it, just smashing. We played a lot of wiffle ball at the time, playing a lot of wiffle ball with friends, and really got my hand-eye coordination down. And with wiffle ball, you're usually playing really close pitching. It's not very far, and people are throwing as hard as they can, and playing with some good ball players too. It'd be like baseball friends, right? And yeah, my hand-eye coordination got really good. Where I was in, I would do Griffey was a big deal at the time, and he was at the prime of his career, 7th, 8th, 9th grade to 10th grade for me. And so I had, we'd play around, and I'd kind of have like a Griffey vibe going. But then it kind of got like, oh, well, I was like simplifying a lot of things, and then hitting the ball to right field and just learning how to hit, honestly. And that's a weird thing, because I felt like coaches, all the drills you do growing up and all the coaches that help, nothing compared to the hitting kind of drills wiffle ball was for me. And then later on, I learned some drills like second to last year playing, where I really learned how to hit. I feel like I could teach anybody how to hit now. It's something that I've done a little bit on the side, but never really seriously pursued, just because of different reasons, right? But I want to share that knowledge as well. So I've actually thought about things on how to do that. I could do YouTube videos and that. But back to sophomore year, though, yeah, I had that wiffle ball Griffey thing going, and man, I was smashing the ball. I was hitting. If you remember the Doris School, there was a baseball field out there. That's where the sophomores played.
Yeah, that's
I think
where
it was Doris.
Oh,
Was it
okay.
Doris? Yeah, there was that right next to the VFW.
Right,
And
right.
quick story. So it was a huge field, their playground, and there were some houses and a fence way out in left field. And they were way out there. I mean, they were probably 340 or 350. It wasn't even like a baseball field setup, just a straight fence. I remember our coach was Coach Hine, he was a good baseball coach for me as well. But he was like, guys, I've never seen anybody hit it over that fence. Don't try, just hit the ball, hit line drives and all that kind of stuff. And then we were playing a game against Belleville East, and it was the first inning, and I batted third. And mind you, you asked if I played up. Like, there were others with us. We had, Kenny Lutz, Dan Munoz, and Charlie Johnson. And yeah, I think that was it. They played up. And so we practiced with the varsity team as sophomores, but then those guys basically got called up and I didn't. And so I wasn't salty. I was just like, all right, like, and so really, and also to be honest, I didn't really get good at baseball, especially hitting. I started really hitting my stride as my freshman year. Freshman year is when, so I wanted to share that because kindergarten, we'll just say, you know, whatever the grade it was, up until 8th grade, I was always like a bottom of the lineup hitter, 7th, 8th, whatever. And then as time went on, like I said, I guess I hit, you know, growth spurt or whatever, but I started to get stronger, and then I batted third, maybe partially because of the wiffle ball practice, right? But that was freshman year. So then again, sophomore year, we practiced with them. I had a good year the year before, and then didn't get called up. And then, so that was just smashing the ball. So back to my story, sorry.
No, you're good.
Basically, good. Yeah. So it was Belleville East, first inning, whatever. I was down 0-2 in the count, and the guy threw a high fastball up and in, and I just bashed it, and it landed on top of a garage across this fence. It was just a bomb. I actually still have the ball. I think it's at my parents' house, but it was a brand new ball because it was the first inning, and there was like a scuff on it from hitting the shingles and scuffing it. But shortly after that, I got, you know, I started to start on the varsity, and really that was my best varsity year as well. Again, I contribute a lot of that success to having played basketball and just being in really good shape. And but yeah, I ended up hitting like, I don't know, it was like close to 500. It was like 470. I played 14 games and I had 7 home runs varsity. And I think I was like 15, maybe 14. I graduated, my birthday was in the summer, and I was young for my age, or for the grade. So when I graduated, I was 17. So 2 years, I was probably 15 then, playing varsity against like 18-year-olds, which is a big difference when you're that young, because you're not developed. You're not, yeah, right? Like, you're playing against bigger kids. So anyway, yeah.
Where did you end up going to college at for baseball again?
I went to Kaskaskia Community College. It's in Centralia, Illinois. So it's in the same conference as SWIC would be.
Okay.
And it's a really competitive conference. There's maybe 12 teams or so. You go to like Wabash, Indiana, some other only Illinois. So it's kind of like some farming areas, more rural. And Kaskaskia was one of those. It was a rural area.
What was the transition like as far as like skill level, do you think, going from your senior year in high school into community college?
That's a good question, because it would have been comparable. You know, it's one of those deals where you're always going to see different skill. Like, so in other words, like high school, there were some really great players that came out of the area when we played, and now, and that'll probably continue. And so it's really good competition. So going from that really good competition to playing in JUCO, there would still be the talent level. There was a lot of the same talent level, but I'd already been calibrated to play at that higher level. So I was like raring to go when we got to that point. American Legion baseball was a thing, which now it's changed. I don't know what it's called, but that was very good as well. So it was like man ball, you know, like playing hardball, you know, playing in those local leagues, and then even going to the community college.
So I would think that, yeah, you know, you played at community college, but there's like another level of players probably that were playing like D1 and then, yeah, can players go into like minor league right after high school, or is there a law that they have to play like X amount of years in college?
Yeah, I don't know what it is now, but back then, no, you could go straight from high school. Yeah, actually, I think I kind of got an idea of even your mindset on where you're going, because like basketball is different than baseball when you're talking levels. Even it's a lot different, actually. So junior college get a lot of talented players. They get drafted right out of junior college. It's a thing. I don't exactly know why folks are funneled to that. But in other words, like, you can slip through the cracks, not get recruited by a big D1, if you will. Mm-hmm. And then, you know, even D2 baseball is really competitive, and quality players D2, and same with basketball or other sports as well. It's going to be different pockets of the U.S. for sure. But I would say like West Coast JUCO baseball is very, very competitive. Like legends go through there, right? Even some of the coaches are legends. And
yeah, I was just kind of interested about that. Yeah, because I guess in my mind, like, I guess basketball, like from high school, usually the like top tier kids, they kind of know, right? They're ranked already. Like it's
Yeah.
the top 50 kids or 100 kids in America, and they know, okay, these kids are going to go to like these major D1 schools. And then there's the players that, you know, they were good in basketball, but then they either might not have the grades or their skill level is not as high compared to the top prospects, right? So they end up going to like a community college. But then there's some that, you know, go through that and it makes them tougher, and they end up becoming big name players in the NBA that have went to community college, or even like smaller like D2 schools, right? So you see that happen. But I guess the reason I ask is because I'm not overly familiar with like baseball, so it's kind of interesting to me.
Yeah, I was trying to think back of, I mean, I know players that played JUCO ball that got drafted, or that I later played with in pro ball, or, you know, those players that are usually the more elite players, I ended up seeing those, you know, them further down the line again at some point playing in. But there's a collegiate wooden bat league that actually used to be around in Illinois. They've changed it. I want to say it's called the prospect leagues now. I could be wrong with that, but there was this league called the CICL, the Central Illinois Wooden Bat League, and I played for Alton's team. It's called the Bluff City Bombers. That was some of the most fun baseball I've ever played. But I played with a guy that named Corey Wade, who ended up being a reliever for the Dodgers when I was probably like 25, 26, and we were the same age actually. And anyway, I can name other players that have gone through, even they're from the area, that played in that league. I played against Ben Zobrist in that league, who he's a longtime All-Star. I think he was with the Cubs most recently. I don't know where he's at now. And Jonathan Papelbon, who was a closer with the Boston Red Sox, played in the league. And I'd say anybody else that played baseball, like what I've talked about, would have similar type of stories where they play with these different players, right? So it always just showed me that we're all the same, and everybody has different paths, and just do your best.
So after community college, you played there 2 years, and then did you go on to like a different school and continue to play, or?
Yeah, so I guess just to talk about JUCO, since we're talking about this stuff, man, this isn't stuff that I always just bring up, right? Like, because it's, yeah, I don't know. I'm always trying to think forward, but I will say talking about these things is cool because I don't know if you're familiar probably with David Goggins, maybe not, but I listened to his audiobook, Can't Hurt Me, and he's had an interesting life, and there's always something to learn from these different people, whether it's a podcast or a book or whatever. And one of the things he taught, he's an ultra marathon runner now. He just ran like a 240-mile marathon. It's called ultra marathon. And he said, like, when he's feeling down and not feeling as confident about himself, he'll go to while he's performing, if he needs that pick me up, like, to get him going, he'll start going to the cookie jar, where he calls it the cookie jar. And these are these things that he's accomplished to pump himself up. Right. So that's kind of like the stuff that I'll reflect on this stuff, but I don't necessarily bring it up always in conversation, because, you're supposed to be humble, I guess. Right. But my freshman year, I ended up hitting 389 at Kaskaskia, and these are like, whatever, you're playing aluminum bat league, and the bats changed at the time. But I was going to say, then I played in a wooden bat league after that in the 4-year school that I went to, which was Quincy University. But talking about Kaskaskia though, it was like a great experience. I loved it. Had the opportunity to play. That was the one thing that was great about it. Like, my coach that I had, his name's Larry Smith. He's a legend. He's like a Hall of Fame coach for like the junior college NCAA or whatever it's called. And he taught a lot of great lessons. And he was a really mild mannered guy, but he would tell us things like, like, basically like, life's a path of peaks and valleys, and you want to stay in the middle, or, you're never good as you think you are. You're never as bad as you think you are. These are kind of like, after the games, he would tell us these things, like, especially if we lost or whatever, maybe if we won too, he would say it all the time. But so he let us play though. Like, we were just playing ball. He basically recruited players from like Illinois, because a lot of teams would recruit from all over, and they would have really talented teams. But he was rooted in the like community aspect of getting people that were from Illinois, not for any reason other than just that, giving the local kids a chance to play, right? So I got to play for him, and that's where had a full scholarship. I was the only full scholarship offer that I had, and out of high school. Because anyway, so I ended up hitting 389. I was like had the highest average for the team. I got a little plaque for that. The next year, this kid named Tim Hansel, who was a baller from Edwardsville, one of the best baseball players I ever played with, but he had one. I think he had one less at bat. He and I had the same amount of hits, but he had one less at bat, so he like edged me out for like a 384 average, and I had a 382. But that freshman year though, I was hitting over 400 going into our last 2 games, and I went like 1 for 8 because the wind was blowing in dead. Like we're playing in Indiana, and it was a terrible day to play baseball. It was like freezing, just not fun. And I say terrible day, like baseball is not a cold weather sport, right? Like it's not fun when it's super cold out. But my average ended up dropping to the 389 over 400. And then my next year, I hit like 382. And my first year, I had 1 home run, and I batted leadoff because you pinch ran for the catcher. My headphones are about to die too, so I'm gonna have to switch it up. But
okay, no problem. Yeah, this is interesting stuff, man.
Yeah, here. Well, let me finish this thought though. So then, but I let off because you could pinch run for the catcher, and I was a catcher. So like I'd get a hit or whatever, and then somebody would come in to run for me. I'd put my gear on, and then I'd chill. So that was nice because the catcher, usually you catch double headers too. I'd catch both games anytime we'd play games. That's another reason, I led the team, and I was a catcher, right? Like you're catching double headers and stuff. Like when you get to college, you catch all the games basically, and they're all a lot of double headers. But I hit 11 home runs my sophomore year. I was a little bit beefier. I was like always lifting weights. I wasn't in great shape, right? I wasn't like, you're in college and like you're learning how to like take care of yourself and eat and all that kind of stuff. So I was a little heavier then, but I ended up hitting 11 home runs, and then whatever, you got 2 years and then you're gone. So then, I was fortunate enough to get a full scholarship offered at Quincy University. And then I had a half scholarship to SIUC, so D1. I had a half scholarship. I decided to go to Quincy because I had a full scholarship and I was going to play, and I knew that. And that's what I was going earlier with, like you could go to any school, any D1 school, and you're not going to play most likely as a freshman. That kind of goes. And basketball is different. Basketball is different, right? Like it's a different animal. You're playing your absolute, like, I don't know. You're playing your best players. A lot of times they're going on to the NBA, right? So like best player is always going to play. You just kind of, I don't know, baseball, the way it works, man, you almost got to re-earn it every time you're new somewhere.
My friend Brandon, he played baseball too. And so he would always tell me, he played all 3 sports, like all major sports, baseball, basketball, and football. But he told me, he said, out of all those 3 sports that he played, he said, baseball definitely takes the most skills out of those 3 sports. Do you agree with that?
Well, yeah. So I say, yeah, like, I'm absorbed in the question because I don't want to, like, I think there could be arguments in any direction. So I don't, there's interesting. I've got a friend who is he's a high school, like he's an assistant high school football coach at a really good, really high level football program. And he played baseball, I think, in college. I don't know if he played football, but he played baseball for sure, because I know we've talked about it. And he said that they would do like intramurals and stuff, and the baseball team would always win against all these other different, it could be the football team, basketball, whatever. And this isn't always the case, right? But this is his take on it. But he just thought that, you have to have that hand-eye coordination, and like baseball is kind of one of those sports that probably incorporates all the different aspects of sports. Like you're catching, you're throwing, you're down, you're up, and playing basketball, I think you got to be in great shape to play basketball. You have to be a great athlete. And, I've never dunked. I can grab the rim. I don't know if I go out there do it right this second, but I play and whatnot, right? But anyway, there's different angles in all the different sports. That's funny he said that though. Yeah, I could see that though, because you could be good. Here's the one thing about baseball though: you can be good at one thing in baseball, kind of like a kicker in football. But like you can, for instance, baseball, you can be really fast. You obviously got to be able to catch and throw and hit. You got to be able to get on base. But you can be good at one thing and kind of put your stake in the ground on that. Like, so you could be a great leadoff hitter and you get on base and you may not hit home runs, but you can get hits and you can take walks. You got a good eye. And then you obviously got to play defense because that's a component. But or you could just be really great at defense. I played with people that like I played with one guy at Kaskaskia who was a great center fielder, and he couldn't hit. Poor guy. Like he'd be right on it. He'd get some hits, but like he had like a 100 something average. But he was such a good fielder. He was an unbelievable fielder, and he started every game, whatever. Like maybe on other teams he wouldn't. Like it eventually holds you up to where you can't go further, right? But for that team, anyway. Yeah, man, that's funny that he says that. But I think you can be sloppy and play baseball too, though. You can be sloppy, right? Like you don't have to look like an athlete. You know?
I was gonna say that because some professional baseball players at the highest level that I see they don't from the eye test, right? They don't look like they'd be good.
Well, so hitting is probably the one I should have put first. You could be a great hitter and just hit and play baseball, right? They're going to find a spot for you. It's interesting. It's kind of like golf in some ways, but you run and you catch and you throw, there's so many different facets to baseball. That's what I was trying to say earlier. There's so many different components and different things that you can be really good at that stand out and help the team win. And football, there's less of those. There's running, there's catching, there's, and you got to there's a physicality that you have to have. There's a certain physicality you don't have to have to play baseball, whether it's size or speed or whatever, but you have to have those to play football, and you have to have those to play basketball. Like, how many great track players play baseball? It's like probably most of them play football, so there's just those little different crossovers that I've observed through my years, right? But that's a good question or a good thing to bring up.
Yeah,
it's funny.
You ever watch that show Eastbound and Down with Kenny Powers?
It's been a while, but yes, yeah. I saw at least the first season, and I know there was a season 2. I want to say I saw it, but I can't. It's been a while.
Yeah, I think it finished with 4 seasons, but that was one of my favorite TV shows, man. But I bring that up because Kenny Powers, the lifestyle that he lives in that TV show, man, and he was based off that one baseball player. I think I forgot his name. Like, do you remember the baseball player that got into a lot of controversy in the past for like saying different like racist comments?
Oh gosh. Oh man. Yeah. It was a left-hander. I know what the guy looks like. He was on the Atlanta Braves. I think you're talking about John Rocker. Yeah. He was a lefty, kind of like.
That's the name that was on my head too, Rocker. Yeah. But yeah, Kenny Powers, his character was based off of that guy.
Okay, I didn't quite realize that, but that show is funny, and I haven't seen all 4 seasons, man. But that's a great character. I think it's a hilarious show. I didn't know he was really like racist on the show, though. Is he?
The jokes.
Yeah, maybe. I haven't seen it. I haven't seen it in a while, man. But yeah, he's an interesting character though, and there's probably people out there that are, like I said, I haven't seen all of it, but just the look and the swagger, like he played, big league baseball, and he's got like his style isn't very good, but he puts his money into it. Yeah. Right. Like that's kind of part of his character.
Also, I think in that show, like his mind, he's very focused on one thing, like baseball. Like that's all he wants to like do, and he knows that he's good at it, So I think that's important, right? Is one thing that I've noticed too in a lot of pro athletes is they have that mental focus. Like the ones that are the elite, they're like, damn, I just want to be the best, and they don't think about anything else, So after you got done with Quincy University, right, where did your life journey take you after that?
Yeah, so I was set on playing baseball, right? Like that's when I went to college. You have to choose your major at some point. Like you actually, you can't just have I guess you could have a general, but yeah. So I was like, man, I don't know what I want to do. I remember I guess I just want to touch on that because that kind of like it had an impact even where I'm at now. But I didn't know what to major in, and I knew I was into art, and I wanted to do like photography major. But this was Quincy's like a small Franciscan Catholic school, but it's not like Catholic where it's like private. Just that's the kind of base of it. But anyway, I ended up going into like graphic design and whatnot. But I didn't intend on like doing that, So like where was I going after there? Like I put everything into baseball. Like that's all I wanted to do. Mm-hmm. And so I didn't get drafted. And then I ended up, I thought I should have, right? Like I was, so like, talking to those summer leagues, comparing myself to other players, which I don't like to compare myself to anybody, but you obviously, you got numbers, you got, performance, and it's a performance driven business, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I actually won like the co-MVP of the CICL league my second year. I was an all-star both years. And then I was a co-MVP, which I was a catcher, had some of the best stats across the whole league. And our team lost in the championship both years that I played, which sucked. But anyway, but that kind of, again, put me in comparing to everybody. Like I thought I would get drafted. I didn't. That's okay. And then I ended up going and like trying out for teams because I didn't know what to do. Like, there's no real blueprint. At least nobody I knew it on how to, where you go and this and that. So I didn't necessarily feel like I had like a lot of guidance or help, on what to do, but I'd go do tryouts and whatnot. And I remember I went to this tryout in Columbus, Ohio for a team that was in the Frontier League. So then I'm looking at like independent league options, right? That's really the next thing. And so I tried out for that team. I actually left the tryout. Let me think here. Oh no, wait a minute. So I was like networking, and I had a tryout to go to Evansville, Indiana for the Evansville Otters, and they're in the Frontier League. So I went out there, and then I got signed. Like it was like some weird little workout, and then they signed me, and then I was there 1, 2, 3 games, so like 3 days. And then like they went on a road trip, and then they released me whenever, like, so they cut me, fired me, whatever. I didn't even play an inning. I like took batting, it was a weird, so that's kind of like, we're talking into now a subject of like being judged.
Looking back on that time now, could you see, as an older version of you now, could you see why they potentially or probably, I guess, cut you? Or what are your thoughts on it now?
Yeah, no, it was more of this is how it is. With baseball, it's kind of like cattle or something. Like there's always going to be another player. And so these teams or whatever, they can just cycle through players. That's why they'll sign people for, like, they'll bring people from other countries and sign them because like they can, and it's a better opportunity for that person and those types of things. So like, I'm not trying to tie the two together there. I'm just simply saying, like, seeing players is kind of the name of the game, and then you cycle through players, and then you bring them in. They're there for a couple of days. I want to keep them, but then like, nope, I got somebody I think's better. I think that's what's going on with like with managers on like the independent league teams, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's a lot of networking on their side of like finding players and that thing. So yeah, in this case, like, no, I didn't get a shot to play at all. Like I did, it was like they cut me, but I learned a lesson right away. It was also like a weird vibe though, because they cycled through players. So I kind of got a look. The guy, they didn't think I was the right fit. That's great. That's fine. That's okay. That's my point though. You're putting yourself out there. That's part of it. You can't like take any of it personally, right? So you're like learning lessons through that. Although it was a hard time because you're putting everything you have into one thing, and then like, and you're good at it, and that's like your identity. That's what you're good at in life. You know what I'm saying? Like that's what got me. I had 4 years of school. That's what I was good at. And so then you start like thinking about like, well, shit, like what else am I? What else could I do or whatever? But I stuck, I just had a supportive family, and
at that point, like after you got cut from that situation, what was your thought? Were you like, damn, that was it? That's all I could do?
no,
Or were you like, damn, I'm gonna
no,
keep trying?
to keep networking, keep trying. So then from there, and it was actually, so like my girlfriend at the time, so my wife now, she actually went with me on that trip. So she was out there and then was planning on like driving back, because this is in Evansville, Indiana at the time. But then I had another tryout. I was like networking, and then I had another tryout with a different team in like Columbus, Ohio. So we drove out there, and then this is a good story. So then drove out there, did this little workout, and there was me and another guy. They were like trying out for the team, and this dude was like, he was also a catcher. And I was always like, in batting practice, man, you have to have like somebody throwing the ball in the right spot. You can have a bad BP pitcher, batting practice pitcher, and they can make you look really bad, or you could have a good one that makes you look really good, right? Like throwing the ball where you can hit it consistently, throwing it in the wheelhouse. And like for me, I remember it was like so. I was hitting line drives and stuff, but I was like trying to hit the ball hard places, and then it went okay. And then this other guy that they were trying out, again, they're like, that you're kind of trying out against the other person. This dude's just hitting like bombs, like he's just teeing off on this pitcher, hitting home runs like in batting practice. Then the manager shows up. The manager was an ex big leaguer.
Okay.
And anyway, he showed up and he wasn't even there for the tryout. So they're like, oh, he wasn't even here. Like, we're gonna, like, we come back tomorrow. And it was like, what the, this is really bizarre, right? But it shows you how unorganized it can be, or like even like what a joke it is. I was feeling like it was like kind of like a joke. Like, you gotta be kidding me. You're kind of getting run through the ringer. Well, then,
Yeah.
and then in between that time, then I actually had a call with the Gateway Grizzlies, where I think I originally like maybe had a tryout with them to start, but it wasn't for sure. So I was like, well, this isn't for sure. I'm even gonna get a tryout, so I'm gonna go over here. And I went, but then in the meantime, then they like connected with me after that day and it was like, hey, we want you to come out here, basically to play for them, but it was like kind of try out, but like understanding it's not like I was going to be a team. Yeah, then I ended up going there and signed with them. It was like, I want to say it was the day before 4th of July or something like that. So then, yeah, I signed with the Gateway Grizzlies in the same league as those other two teams are, by the way, right? So let me just keep going here real quick, because then the Evansville team, when I was there, I had like long hair, like big league hair, you would call it, like a hat. It was all poofing out. And
we need to see some pictures
team,
of
I knew
those.
one guy on the team who was cool. Yeah, they're out there actually. If you Google my name, they're on the internet. But one of the guys on the team was cool, and like I would like hang with him on the Evansville team, because you don't know what you're doing or who anybody is. You don't know anybody. But one of the days I went into my locker after the game, and somebody had put a business card in my locker, like sitting up so I could see it, and it was like for like a hair cutting, like a barber shop, like to say like get a haircut. And I'm like, yo, what kind of like negative energy is that? You know what I'm saying? Like, so I was like, those are just like, okay, like, all right, but I didn't feel very welcomed on that team, right? So, and I don't know who put it there, right? Like, so it's not really a joke if you never tell anybody, like, oh, hey man, that was, it was a joke. You know what I mean? Like, there was no love. It was no love. And that's another thing. There's no love with this shit. None of it. You know what I mean? Like, it's no love. It's like,
that's professional baseball, so I would assume that it's very cutthroat, and everybody's trying to get one up on the other and play probably like some psychological games, right?
Like, people are going to be haters. So like, that's like, it kind of goes into a little bit of the sports culture of like the shit talking culture of growing up. And I've thought about that. I've reflected on that. Like, I'm not about that, but I was good at it if I had to be. But like, then you're just going at somebody, like basically trying to hurt each other's feelings. Like, that's not cool, right? That's what that was an act of that though. And I didn't put that out. My point is, like, I could hold my own, right? But so then though, I got on the Grizzlies, right? So same league. And I remember when I was in Evansville, I was like talking to one of the guys, because you're there like all the time together, right? And play games 3 hours long, and I was like, who's the best team in the league? Who are the best teams or whatever? And they're like, so and so, and they're like, Gateway's good. This one of the guy in Evansville was telling me Gateway's good. They got good pitching, right? So like, and so then I went to Gateway, and then they did have good pitching. We had good pitching, and then we ended up winning the championship. So when you're in that, like, we were, they were a pretty good team. I helped a ton. Like, I was a great defensive catcher. Like, I could throw people out. I could do it all, really. I didn't hit very well on that team though. So that's one of the things, like, going through playing ball. You're not good at everything all the time. You want to be, and you work at it, but sometimes things aren't working. And hitting was one where, like, you're either kind of hot or you're not. I mean, I got to a point where I was like solid, even as a pro hitter. Like, I hit 300 actually on one of the teams, which if you looked at my stats, they had me at 296, but I actually hit 306 because they forgot to add a hit. I was like 2 for 3, and it should have been, they had me as 1 for 3. So like, they have my stats forever wrong when I hit 300 on one of these pro ball teams. So that's the stuff you remember too, right? But then back to Gateway though. So I started after like the second day I was there or whatever, and started throughout the season. And then we ended up getting another catcher who was a little bit older, kind of like more of a veteran. And he was a good hitter and a good catcher. And he ended up starting kind of towards the latter half of the year. So I was backing him up, which is fine, right? Like, it's part of the game, which I really never was a backup though, ever throughout my whole career. So that's kind of, but he had like a good resume, and he was a really great contributor. He hit well and all that kind of stuff. But then going back, we ended up playing. So we went through the playoffs. I'm kind of fast forwarding through, like, I guess just the season. But we basically we ended up getting to the playoffs, and then I think we won. I don't think we lost a game throughout the playoffs. I want to say maybe we lost the first game. I think we lost the first game, and it doesn't really matter. We were losing the first game. Then we ended up coming back. We won and we didn't lose again. But we played Evansville in the championship that year. So it all came back around. We played Evansville. And I remember just like I said, man, the little like shit talking when I was on the team. See, like I never felt welcome. But then I ended up coming in and catching the last couple innings of the closing clinching game. And so I was on the field. I actually made a play where a guy tried bunting or something like that, and I like caught it back over my shoulder or something. So there was like so I had a little action going on. But yeah, I was on the field the last out of the game, like when we like threw our gloves up and all that on their field. So that felt good. Not as in any sort of like, vindictive way, but just like it was a good ending to that season for sure. Right.
Yeah. A little bit of redemption, I guess, right? And I guess satisfaction from what happened in the past with that team, right?
Yeah, absolutely, man.
But I was gonna say with playing for the Gateway Grizzlies, like how was the pay? Was it like pretty good?
No, not at all. You get paid like, yeah, I want to say it was like at the time even, which was like probably 20, it was 15 to 20 years ago. This was like '03, so it wasn't 20 years, but like, yeah, I think you'd make like $700 a month. So yeah, but you pretty much live and eat and ate for free in most instances. So it's not like you didn't have any expenses, but you didn't make, you don't make a whole lot. And I would say that's pretty thorough throughout the minor leagues in general. You don't make a whole lot. That's what makes it tough to like stick with it, right? It's like I did it for 4 years, and I definitely proved to myself I could play it at a high level and be excellent or great. You know what I mean? Throughout that whole, like it's one thing that doing. It's the cool thing about competitive sports is that you can learn what it feels to be great or to find yourself and like who you are and like your role and stuff.
Yeah, I think to even play at that high level, it takes a lot of dedication, and you got to but
work.
I guess that's the trade-off, right? Sometimes if you really want to do something that you love, like sometimes the trade-off is going to be money. A lot of times.
Oh yeah. You start at a point where you don't need it, then you kind of like, for me, I was like, man, I'm so much more than this, and like I've got other things that I want to do, and definitely money's a tool, right? So I wanted to take who I was, and like where I was, like basically as a baller, as a ball player, and apply that to life in different areas, right? So yeah, but money, obviously. You got to have money.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's always the trade-off, right? It's like, how long can you go without money or live, like, I guess, at a lower standard until you reach that point that you think you can reach in your head, right? So,
yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
But after your pro career in baseball, like, what kind of like led you out to, you're in Portland right now, right? Or in that area?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, I live in the metro. Like I said, Aaron was over here not too long, like last week or whatever. He popped over. Yeah. So, I ended up basically doing, so I guess when you're playing ball, like you're working at restaurants and coffee shops and stuff like that, right? And basically, I got really good at talking to people, and obviously playing ball, if you're talking to people, you have to be a good communicator to be on a team and to be part, the teams that do well really care about each other. Like they're really, I think so. I think that's part of the chemistry of winning is you have to care about each other and everybody has to be bought in. But so I was doing those roles of like serving and whatnot. I was like, man, I could talk. I should probably do sales or something, So I ended up getting a job at doing mortgages. So I was a mortgage loan officer for about 3 years. So that was like my first job. Like real job, I guess you could say. I worked for Nationwide Advantage Mortgage, which is funny. Shout out Nationwide, right? Yeah, so I was there for I basically did mortgages. I worked for another company as well for about 3 years, and then we moved to St. Louis, and then I work in the logistics industry now. And then my company, we had the opportunity to transfer out here because when I played, one of the teams I played on was I played in Reno, played in the Golden League, which is like kind of like AA, AAA caliber at the time. I don't even know if the Golden League's still around. I think it is, but the teams will come and go. Sometimes the teams will switch leagues, and there's a lot of different changing over. Or sometimes the team isn't even around anymore. Like that happens, and some get added to leagues. But I lived in Reno for half of the season. And yeah, I loved the West Coast. That's what got me out. Like being in the West, I was like, ooh, like it just felt right. Reno's, I don't know if you've been to Reno, right? But you're in Nevada, and then
Yeah, I've been there before. Yeah.
so you can kind of okay. So it's funny because I've been to Reno, but I haven't been to Vegas, right? Like so, but
Yeah.
still, these areas of the country have different vibes, and then there's people around that, So a lot of guys on the team that I was on when I was in Reno were like from the West Coast, like a lot of people, like almost everybody, it seemed like. And I was like, and people would think I was from out there even when I was like on the team, like just because like whatever, just how I
The
dressed or looked or
vibes.
whatever, it doesn't really matter. But the vibes, yeah, the vibes were clicking. So then we would go through like Tahoe all the time to go to California. Our team was in Nevada. We were the only Nevada team. It was Reno, Chico, Cal State Fullerton's field. So you're in Fullerton. We played on like their field. And then Long Beach, San Diego, and I know Yuma, Arizona, and I might be missing one in there. But then you go back to Reno. So you're hitting that whole loop, and just saw the West, and lived out there and traveled it, and it was awesome. So anyway, I just kind of always had a place for me. I was like, I could see myself living there someday, And then, yeah, like I said, long story short, my wife and I took a trip out to Portland just to check it out. We had frequent flyer miles. And I guess I could mention too, one thing that kind of put that on the map for me was for Portland. I mean, obviously I always knew about like Trailblazers and, I knew Nike was out here and stuff. Right. So like, but I remember watching on ESPN back when I was in St. Louis, probably like 2010, 11, 12, whatever. I don't even remember when the Portland Timbers started, but it was like early 2010s. And I saw the Portland Timbers were on TV playing like the Sounders. And I saw they were doing like this pregame chanting, and they sang the national anthem, and it was all synchronized. And I was like, wow, like that's awesome. Like the energy of what everybody was doing together. And how it is, like the energy of a crowd, like when you're at a concert or whatever, even playing games, you can feel the energy. And so I was like, that's cool. That kind of put it on my head. Like there's something cool happening there with that. Right. And because I still don't know of any other teams in the US that get that into it, and of any sport at all, even football and everything. Right. So anyway, that was kind of part of it. Came out here. It was like, man, it's beautiful. It's, it's an awesome place. And then
How long have you been in Portland for?
a good 3 years.
Are you still doing like the mortgage stuff out there?
I do logistics sales. I work for a large like shipping company.
Got you.
And then then I do the little side hustle on the side.
Oh,
the
okay.
Mystic Fern.
Okay, so yeah, that's what I was gonna ask you now, is about like how did Mystic Fern come about in your mind?
Yeah, the way I looked at it was like, so a couple things. One, I was an art major in school, so where I never had I had art classes going through high school. Like I remember in 7th grade, I made this really cool Charles Barkley inspired mug. So I've got this mug. It's not here actually in front of me. I got this Charles Barkley mug from 7th grade. I loved Charles Barkley back in the day. I mean, I still like him, right?
Yeah.
But he was a beast.
Yeah.
And Phoenix Suns and all that. Like that's when I really got into Barkley. But yeah. So anyway, I never had any classes other than like 7th grade art. And I was like, man, I'm artistic. I grew up, doing stuff like my mom and grandma, I remember, would like make ornaments for the Christmas bazaar at school and stuff. So like I was always like doing little painting stuff and this and that. Anyway, I then decided to make a major in that. So like that's what so graphic design. I was trying to tie in my creativity with like funny, like humor, right? Like that's kind of like part of marketing. So that was kind of my thought. So then we lived in Iowa for a little bit, and in Des Moines there's this t-shirt shop that would like just put funny sayings on t-shirts. Like I still have one that says, "I'm more than just a pretty face." So like that t-shirt shop just sold that type of stuff. And I was like, yo, I've got, like I had one of my teammates would always say like I was the king of one-liners. Like I'll come up with funny little like timely like comedic. So that's part of it. Like the ethos of it is like comedy, making people laugh, and which is always something I always try to be as a teammate, right? Like I always felt like I was somebody that really would bring folks together. So that was and you can do that with music. So music's tied into that. All my influences of everything, spiritually, like just sponging everything up, and then and then having an expression to get that out, right? Like creating. And honestly, like you think about it, like you're good at something in life, right? Like I was good at baseball. That was just one thing I was good at, but I believe you're good at more than one thing that you could,
Yeah, whatever you put your time into
go
to
after.
develop.
Go,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, you saw that Kanye, his Joe Rogan interview, he talked about time is love, which I've always understood that and I know that, but like that was a cool thing I heard him say. Like I connected with that, right? Like, you know, what you love to do, you put your most time into, and that's like the most valuable thing you can have is time. And so anyway, so then I was like, all right, I'm gonna start screen printing. So when I was in art school, or whatever, I was like printmaking. I like making prints. I like the process of like what that looks like, whether it's a wood cut or like there's all different types, right? I think it's called mono. Oh my God, I can't even think of the name now because I don't live in the art world anymore. But yeah, anyway, we do these different prints. And so I was into it. And then, so screen printing, that's something we never did. But then that t-shirt company, like I just mentioned, they, I was like, oh, you know, that kind of got me thinking about screen printing, putting stuff on clothes. So then it's like wearable art, right? And then, you know, from there too, it's like, you know, my sense of style. Like I would say one thing from sports culture. So sports is part of that, right? Like that ethos of like, you know, you wear tennis shoes all the time. I'm a sneakerhead, not like crazy where I'm like, I don't have hundreds of boxes, but I've got a lot of tennis shoes. And I don't have anything I don't wear. I don't have anything I don't wear. But
I
I've
like
got
that.
like I counted, I've got like over 20 pair of tennis shoes that I wear in a rotation that are just for wearing out and about. And some get more daylight than others, but regardless, they all get worn. And but you know, and then that like, so I always had my own sense of style. I feel like my sense of style is different than yours, which it is. Everybody's is unique. You know what I'm saying? Like you're expressing yourself through. I always express myself through like clothing the best I could. You know, you know, and then sports, like you know, talking about the Mystic Fern, right? Like I think, you know, staying fit and in shape is important, you know, in my lifestyle. So like that's kind of something that I try to incorporate. It doesn't come off on the surface, but like just everything about who I am, I try to like put out into different designs or like color combos. You know, like I try to make different, like this combo here I really like, but like playing with color, you know, that experimental side of it is fun, which I started out doing screen printing with it, right? Like I was just doing black ink on a white t-shirt or whatever, but I was kind of limited in that. And then I started seeing different color. I'm like, oh, I'd like to be able to print on different colors and just expanding what my knowledge was. So then I started dyeing clothes, you know, like hoodies. I think that was a big thing. I wanted to be able to screen print something on the hood, you know, I didn't know what that was necessarily, but I'm like, so then that kind of took me down on a journey of its own. Because you think about back to sports culture and even music culture, like entertainment, I feel like it all is intertwined. And so it's like you're going from like, say you're on a team. So like I say, you're at a hotel, which is what, you know, minor leagues you do or pro sports. You're at a hotel, you go from the hotel to the field or the stadium or whatever it is. And then, you know, then you get dressed and then you're kind of going out with that. Like if you're going to go get dinner because you're going to be hungry, then like that's what you're going to wear typically. Right. So like, you're kind of wearing what you're gonna like. It can go any direction. It's gonna be versatile, I guess what I'm trying to say, right? And so that's where sneakers comes into play. Like to this day, I don't wear a lot of sandals. I want to have like a pair of tennis shoes on, so I might have to take off running. Not to say that I ever anticipate that, but I'm just saying like, you know, you've been out and about and like your what is it? You call it like a thong sandal? Your thong sandal breaks. I'm like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't want that. Like, I'm kind of going a little bit off here, but like, I don't want to have it. I want to be comfortable. I'm not going off. I'm just saying like, that's kind of where like, I like to be comfortable all the time. And so that's where the shoes is part of the influence as well. So then I make stuff that matches my shoes, right? So here, check this out. Like I actually got a compliment at the grocery store today when I went with my family for like one of the workers or whatever, but they were like, I like your outfit, but it's like, so I got these pair of like Air Max ones that I rock with.
Those
this
are
one.
dope. Yeah.
Yeah, and the lighting's whatever, but yeah. So
I like your whole outfit today, man. It looks dope. It's pretty sweet.
I appreciate that. So yeah, that's kind of it in a nutshell, man. I know we're kind of getting low on time. So
with your company though, you started it what, 3 years ago?
At the end of 2016, I started really, I think, selling stuff in like 2017.
Oh, okay. Where can people find your stuff at?
Yeah, so I've got a website. It's mysticfern.com. mysticfern.com, and then I actually have mysticferns.com as well. So yeah, that's the other thing, Brandon, is like, so I've got this one here. Part of the idea was if I was to, with the name in itself, it's like if I was to make up a fictitious team, like, so I kind of thought about that, like the business being a team that I'm making up, kind of like the Mighty Ducks would be like in the, and then they turned into a team, I guess. That's wild. But yeah, I kind of like thought about that. Like, how do I name something that like can be anything, doesn't necessarily tie to anything, but yet like kind of think about it as like a fictitious team. And so that's kind of the direction I've gone. I've got like a baseball card item, like a baseball card shirt with the closer. So then it's like you're making up fictitious characters, right? But they kind of encompass. So I've got one called the closer. He's got a huge beard, kind of like the Brian Wilson beard, from the Giants from a couple years ago, 10 years ago probably now. But yeah, that was part of it. Yeah. So mysticfern.com, and then also I'm on Etsy just to have like a presence, maybe to just get a little cross traffic. But it's a lot of different. I don't want to have it on a bunch of different sites, but at the same time, Etsy definitely has its place. I've sold on Etsy before in the past, so it's kind of, I was familiar with it. But primarily though, like I said, anything that would be on Etsy is going to be on mysticfern.com, and actually probably 5 times more stuff is on my website. So
right on.
Appreciate you asking.
Yeah, no, I gotta come by and check it out, man, and see what you got. I do like the stuff that you put out, that you promote on your Instagram. I feel like that's some dope stuff. And I think today, yeah, it's about finding your niche and then marketing, promoting, man. It's a lot of it because there's so much traffic, I think, going on through Instagram and Twitter, people promoting their stuff. So it's like, how much time can somebody invest and to try to cut through all the competition? That's one of the things like that I learned. Like I went to this Wyclef Jean. You're familiar with Wyclef, right?
Oh yeah. Hey, real quick, back in the day, talking about like you only had so many CDs because they're like $20 and you didn't have any money, right? So like I somehow got a hold of the Fugees album. I can't remember what it's called now.
The Score.
Like Killing Me Softly. And
the Score. Yeah.
That was like, dude, I think that was the first time. Yeah, that might have been one of the first times. I'm not saying it's the exact first time because I might have heard it before, but like No Woman, No Cry. Like that was like kind of got me into like Bob Marley more. I wasn't like, I didn't have Bob Marley anything back then other than maybe hearing something on the radio, which I don't even know if I did.
Yeah, I fuck with Bob Marley. Anyway. But I was gonna ask you, like, what
you were saying.
Oh, but with Wyclef, like
Wyclef, yeah.
Yeah, the thing with Wyclef, he was saying like, the thing about today's generation is you can put out music. Anybody can make music a lot easier and get their creative thoughts out to the world a lot faster. But he said with that, it comes like a lot more competition. So he said, how do you stand out, from the other like 400,000 or however many people are trying to do the same thing that you're doing, right? And that's the $1 million question. I don't even think he had like an answer for that. But I listen to sometimes Gary Vee, and a lot of stuff that he talks about is like volume. You got to put out volume and not overthink like what people are gonna say.
Yeah, I like Gary Vee a lot, man. He talks about just doing it, just like do whatever you want to do, like just do that thing, like that's cool. Yeah, no, I mean if you're asking me, maybe even that like the question or like where my mind's at in that space is like I feel like I think quality and authenticity is a big deal. Like being genuine, being yourself. I think a foundational piece for me and making the stuff. That's kind of where like I'm getting into marketing and those things more now, where I wasn't really doing a whole lot because I'm like, what am I marketing? You know what I'm saying? Like, I got to get my stuff tightened up. I got to put something. I've got a lot of items. I've got hundreds of items that I could post, probably 100 more than I have listed online. I got to take the time to do that. But my point is like doing what you can with your time is important, obviously. But then back to it, like, I think pushing the limits and like being like in your creativity, like even, like I got this crows on the bat image going right here, right? Crows on the bat.
Yeah, ties into your baseball. Yeah.
Yeah, and then like obviously, I've seen other teams with birds on bats, right? Like it's kind of like just pulling from wherever you get inspiration. But yeah, I think being relatable. I mean, that's why people like music is being relatable. So I try to be genuine on my approach of like doing the best with what I have, and I try to put out the coolest whatever I can. But you definitely can't compare yourself to anybody else. Some people have different means to do things that you don't. They might have some sort of machine that makes something crazy cool, but so doing your best with what you have and doing it and keep trying and being resilient, I think is important. But I'm not Wyclef or Gary Vee, so I'm just kind of speaking from my own experience, like I do have a blueprint though from like my sports career, right? And I do have a business career as well that's going well in general, so I just keep building off of what I have and try to be authentic and speak to what I know. Like I know music, I know you know, I feel like fashion, not like high fashion. I haven't been in some sort of fashion, but like I get compliments on my clothes and my shoes and my, you know what I mean? And I'm not looking for that, but I'm selling that. Like you can buy that. It's kind of my thought. Like I know people that get compliments on their hoodies and they tell me about it, you know. I didn't mean to keep rambling there, but that's like kind of part of it is like uplifting people with colors and the vibes, right?
Yeah, I wish we had more time to talk.
Yeah.
You know, and we can always do another episode in the future, and you know, whenever you want to talk, you know, even off the record, it's all good. Let me know, you know. Yeah, it's good to kind of like talk your thoughts sometimes, right?
Yeah.
But I guess the last question I want to ask you before I have to leave pretty soon. I have maybe like 3 to 5 minutes tops. But I was gonna ask you. You bring up music a lot. So what were, as quickly as you can, what were some of your like musical inspirations when you were younger, and then into like your 20s until currently now? Like who do you listen
crazy.
to?
How many different either people or bands am I going to leave off if I was going to have to, you know what I'm saying? Like it's so widespread, right? Like
the biggest ones.
Yeah.
The biggest ones, because we all have them big ones, right?
Yeah. Well, so like I grew up listening to a lot of like oldies music. I'm talking like the oldies, like Beach Boys and probably past that backwards. And, you know, that listen to a lot of oldies, kind of a poppy, you know, it's poppy, catchy songs. So grew up listening to that. And then, you know, Beatles are mixed in there as well. But then like, you know, talking about CDs again, like I remember, you only had so many CDs, right? That's how I look at it. Like you could only get so much. So at least that was me personally, right? So, you know, it was definitely the Nirvana, Kurt Cobain and Nirvana. Like you got Dave Grohl, even the Foo Fighters. Even though it's not like I even listen to Foo Fighters, I'll listen to Nirvana more now though. But you know, one of the big albums, like I remember getting the Outkast Equemini album, and I was like, that was an eye opener for me. I remember listening to like I think it was The Aliens, the one right before that had, I forget the Me and You song, you know. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah. Elevators.
I remember, but just Elevators. That's it, bro. That's the thing. Like I'll know. Like I know all these songs, and like I don't even remember all the names. You're listening to stuff digital now too, so it's like, and I don't need to memorize it. I just know it, right? But yeah, so I mean, I definitely like hip hop too. I mean, I feel like, you know, even fast forward into now, I mean, I was really high on like the Frank Ocean Blonde album when it came out. I was like, this is like, I love that album.
I fuck
like
with Frank Ocean.
Frank Ocean's dope, man.
Channel Orange.
He's an artist, right?
I got into his like Channel Orange album. I think.
Orange. So I was into that too. I'm just saying though, then like Blonde came out and I was like, wow, like that album is super like, and the other album I listened to that one a little bit. You know, there's a couple tracks on there that are badass. I think it's Rich Kids is one of my favorite ones off of there. Super Rich Kids. Check that out. I'm sure you know which one I'm talking about. But
even I'm gonna listen to it again now.
I was like, that's different. I like the different stuff. I like, you know, I like Pharrell as an artist in general. I think he does so much for just putting out artistic clothing or art and music or whatever. And I think that's kind of even part of the ethos too that I try to capture. You know, Kanye as well. I've always liked Kanye's music. I haven't dove into all of his albums, but there's, you know, then there's some, like I remember College Dropout, his first album, I thought Through the Wire was like the best song I'd ever heard at the time. You know what I mean? Like the song was just like banging and the message. But
I fuck with Kanye, man, but I feel like sometimes some of his stuff today is more like he's more out there, like I guess publicly, and I don't know if that kind of affects his music, but for me, like I was heavy into his stuff early, but then he got a little bit kind of like eclectic, very like out there. But you know, I guess that's where he's at.
You cut out a little bit. What was the last part? He got what?
He got a little bit more eclectic with his styles, like trying different things, which is cool.
Yeah, his gospel one, I didn't really listen to that. I stopped at the Yay album, I guess it would be. Which I think that album is great. That, by the way, you got that album, you got the Kids See Ghosts. So Kid Cudi's one, The Man on the Moon was like, when I heard that album, I was like, that's different.
Yeah.
That album was dope. And then, you know, also he put out that Tiana Taylor, which was a banging album. And then he put out that Pusha T. So I always I liked clips, you know, and back in the two, you'd hear like it was like more MTV, kind of like you'd hear one track that was like the song, you know, like the Clips album. What happened to the boy? I forget even actually which ones. I mean, there was a couple off that album, but like anyway, there's a lot of music to go through now to pick from and that type of stuff. So I listen to the Pusha T album, then I'll move on I'll move on to a different album, and it could be like indie rock or whatever. I'm all over the place. Like,
but that's pretty cool. Some of the albums and artists that you name, I think that's pretty cool that you still stay up to date with new music, which is something that I think people our age, they sometimes tend to stop listening to new music and just focus on the old. But I feel like if you do that, or if we do that, there's a lot of good new music that we close ourselves off to, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, dude. The music's like, I think everything. I'm always looking for new stuff, especially if it's like it hits you right. You know, like there's certain tracks. There could be one. There's always those sleeper songs on the tracks. You know, that might be your favorite that nobody else has like really, I don't know, gotten into or talked about because it's not as popular or whatever. But it's just all about connecting, though. Yeah, like the music too. Like you know, Kanye. I know it's controversial, but like he's got some good music though. And like that's like he's like a whole topic. He's kind of polarizing in a lot of ways. But like I respect his clothing and his music and whatnot. I mean, as an artist, like I respect artists and art, you know, artistry that people are putting out. So
yeah, me too, man. Damn, I wish we had more time to talk, man. There's so many different directions this conversation could go down, you know.
Yeah, there's more. Like I said, I got more music. I got more music that I listen to, man. My phone's right here. I'm talking on it, but if I went through there, I'd be like, oh yeah, and this and this. I get into reggae and dub music, and I like Sublime, and you know, like I said, man, anything and everything. If it's good, it's good. Even country at times. Like I'm kind of more into the alt country. Like I like Band of Horses, which I think is alt country, and then like we got like My Morning Jacket. But like anyway, music's music, right? Like it could be anything. I like to check it out for sure. So we can talk again though, Brandon, for real. Yeah, that's
yeah, man.
I think it'd be fun.
I'm glad we finally got some time to finally do this. I gotta go, but like, is there any like any last words or anything you want to tell people or shout out anybody?
If anything, just be positive in life and spread positivity and love in everything that you do. That's kind of what makes it all go around. I think it kind of leads to like a happier life, right? Like that's kind of what I've learned over the journey. It's just, you know, riding the high waves and like laying low when it's low, but like just being good to everybody and being accountable, I think is the other thing, right? Just like looking at, you know, we're all inside and stuff with the pandemic, and then you got everybody's got something to be upset about somewhere about anything, and that's okay. That's how it is. And yeah, man, like I said, just stay positive and treat everybody well.
Right on. Shout out to Wayne. What's a good nickname that I could use for you on the thumbnail? Wayne, aka WayneHead?
Yeah, the WayneHead is pretty well. There's not a lot of nicknames for anybody. Like that's it. You know what I'm saying? Like that was you know, the Wayans brothers had that cartoon, right? My friend Dane is the one that was like, I'm gonna start calling you WayneHead. There's not a lot of Waynes out there. That's the other thing. There's not a lot of Waynes. I've only met a couple, you know?
Yeah.
So but you call me whatever.
All right, right on. Yeah, man. Thanks, Wayne, though. I appreciate your time today, man.
Yeah, for sure, bro. All right, man. Well, I appreciate it. We can text it out or whatever.
Yeah,
so
man.
Have a good night.
All right. Thank you, Wayne. You too, man. Take care. Thank you again for your time.
You too, buddy. Nice talking to you.
All right. Peace, Wayne.
Later.
This concludes our Danse Macabre.